Hi, this is Jim Peters with the Responsible Hospitality Institute with the Tuesday Forum recap on Build Better Local State Relations on Alcohol Policy. The Tuesday Forum is a monthly event held the second Tuesday of the month where participants break out into small groups. Here are the topics that they discussed, and what follows is a summary from each of those groups. I hope you'll find it informative and that you'll join us again for a future Tuesday Forum.
So my perspective is in favor of having local liquor licensing and permitting processes for cities, just because mainly a state like Pennsylvania, the state makeup is very different than what the makeup and the values of our cities are, right? We have two big cities, which is Pittsburgh and Philly, and we're very different than the demographic of the rest of the state. However, most of our rules are made from people from the state that may not understand the need for a city to be globally and regionally competitive, and having those tools when it comes to liquor licensing operation and stuff. For example, Philadelphia is on the East Coast. We're less than a 2-hour drive from DC, New York, and Baltimore. And we're right next to Jersey and Delaware, meaning I can get in 5 minutes over to Delaware or over to New Jersey. And so that puts us in a peculiar place when it comes to attracting entertainment, because if you can go to New York and go to 4 a.m. or a liquor license at 4 a.m., DC 3:30, and whatever Baltimore's rules may be, we need those tools as a city to be competitive. Now, with that being said, I am an advocate of city regulated liquor licensing and permit, but with state oversight, to make sure that you don't have that runoff of possible corruption or possible unfairness in the process, because we know there's a lot of power if you can issue a liquor license. So having that state oversight, less regulatory, but more oversight based. So that was my perspective of it from the East Coast, being in the megatropolis of the U.S., where you are competing with your neighbor states and cities.
In California, California is a state with 40 million people in it and 500 cities. So we have huge amounts of diversity and variation. And the approach in California is to have a combination of state control for licensing and local control that participates actively in the licensing through management of the retail setting at the local community where alcohol is sold with a state license to the individual operator, the person that holds the license in the state. And that balance is a very important one to maintain. Cities have full power to use all the land use authorities given to them by the state to regulate the use of property to protect the health and safety of local communities. So communities have a very strong hand in the game around managing the settings where alcohol is sold in comparison or in cooperation with the state, which issues the license to the operator of the outlet at that setting. And balancing the local controls on settings with the state controls on operation of the establishment is California's approach to managing that relationship. And it has its ups and downs, and it's a constant task of, prevention work is never done. It's like house cleaning. You always have to stay at it. But within that approach, we've had some considerable successes in early on identifying high risk settings that need a lot of attention, or else when problems occur after licenses are issued, cities can respond effectively. But on the other hand, cities do not have to then be experts in alcohol management and in control of alcohol sales per se. So that's California's approach, and it's actually working pretty well. And so we recommend that approach to other states as well.
So in Edmonton, Alberta, we have our liquor is regulated by the Alberta Gaming, Liquor and Cannabis Commission, which is our provincial oversight. And then we as a municipality get to regulate the density or where the types of liquor sales are. And then we also have the separation under our business licensing categories of minors prohibited and minors allowed. And we have separate regulations with it, of course, more heavily geared towards public safety when it comes to the minors prohibited venues. So we do have kind of the hybrid where we have the the state, I guess, or provincial oversight, whereas we have the municipalities that can make the decision for their own municipality. We found that it has worked quite well. We've been able to work very closely with our Alberta Gaming and Liquor and Cannabis Commission. We go out, we meet pretty much every week. We go out once or twice a month as a partnership there when we go and do our inspections and such. And we are able to do our enforcement both on the municipality side as well as the provincial side, as well as our, when we were talking about the local police authority, our EPS or Edmonton Police Service have the authority to enforce the Alberta Gaming, Liquor and Commission Act. And AGLC, of course, has some of the funding that goes to our Edmonton City Police as well as down Calgary and the other police forces based on how many, they call them AGLC forms that they fill out for liquor inspections. So that's us in Alberta.
So I'd talk about local licensing and how in Montgomery County, we are part of a 25 jurisdiction team in the state of Maryland that have their local licensing board, although we go to the state for licensing changes in their actual site. Rahim, a little like you described, we have state oversight, and that's where we go to adapt or change anything for our licensing. I love I actually am president of the Maryland Alcohol Licensing Association. And so work with the 25 jurisdictions. We have calls bi-weekly, and I love to hear the reflection of the community local. So local is very important, and you can be more fluid and more flexible and really reflect that community through licensing. So we use licensing, and we try to prioritize as much as possible for that licensing to, help create more vibrancy and help create more activity in our community. And while putting parameters through laws or regulations, and even on the inspectors. So the inspectors have certain requirements by law that they have to do. The first year of business's license, they have to visit them through a first year intervention program, make sure they're right licensed, and that if they have any other requirements or any other assistance they might need. So really love working local. It's more time consuming. You have to prioritize how you want it to look as an alcohol regulator and a licensing agency. But you have to listen. You have to listen to what the community wants and the types of licenses that they would like to have.
Just to piggyback off of what Kathy was saying is sort of that importance of communication. And we talked a little bit about one of the questions related to local law enforcement. Do they have a role? And the reality is if there's problem licensee, they're going to be on it anyway. And so they're naturally, they have a role, but there can be a disconnect between local law enforcement back to the state agency, if that's your structure, and creating mechanisms for that ongoing conversation. And I give Michigan as an example. We were working with Michigan on a project, and they found that they were giving through the state licensing fee back money to the local government units to use money to do enforcement, to help supplement, because the state could not really manage it on their own, to do proactive enforcement, compliance checks, things of that nature. But unfortunately, there's a breakdown on local law enforcement knowing what their authority is and engaging in those types of activities in a robust way. So they're still limping along, unfortunately. So training of those local law enforcement, and one of the examples I like to give is Vermont. They go to the academy, the cadet academy, and train all new local law enforcement on why what they do is important to the Vermont alcohol beverage control, and how to make a case. If you really have a problem actor, how do you make an adequate case for the state to take any action? Because that's where often there's a rub between the locals and the state, is they're not able to make the case based on what the law says they can consider. So communication is really key between the two different entities. So that's somewhere our conversation went.
Hi, this is Jim Peters again. I want to thank you for participating in this video presentation. Please go to our website, sociablecity.org, to learn more about the different programs and upcoming events that we have. Thanks again. Bye.